going to talk about today is connecting with God. Okay, my job at Asia Torah is to help people with that, with the connection with God business. A lot of people talk about it, but here we do it. So today we're going to talk about ways to do it. Now, your number one fiber optic link to the creator of the universe is your soul. You didn't have a soul, well, first of all, if you didn't have a soul, you'd be a cadaver. But that soul that vivifies you is not part of the physical world. If I put you in an MRI, you're not going to see a neshama there. It's weird. Somehow it hangs around the body, your soul, and it is. But it's purely ethereal. It's part of the metaphysical world. It is the part of God ultimately. So your link out of here, Matt, is your soul. That's your link out of here. Otherwise, you're just Mr. This world. You're Mr. Finite, because your whole physical body is finite. Your cerebral cortex, billions of neurons, are all working for your finite existence here. They're sensing everything around you. And so therefore, you're basically Mr. or Miss Finite. And how are you supposed to get in touch with the actual reality? And the answer is you have to ride the soul. So how do you ride the soul? How do you ride the soul on the spiritual highway out of here? And the answer is, well, a couple of things. Number one, you got to turn down the body. You got to turn the volume knob down on the body. Of course, we're Jews. We don't turn down the body like monks would in the Himalayas. We don't completely turn down the body. They take a shotgun to the body. Whereas us Jews, we just tame the body. We subjugate the body's urges. And we still give the body what it wants, but we give it in a kosher, alternative way. And that taming of the body is done via the negative commandments, the thou shalt nots. There are 365 thou shalt nots that exactly kind of specify where your body's going to lead you to, back to Mr. Finite again. And you don't want to be Mr. Finite when the whole point is to connect to the infinite. Okay? So that's number one, is get your body out of the way. And there we have that very tidy list of negative commandments, which are God's way of saying, stay away from that stuff. And then your body shuts up quite a bit. Now, there are other aspects of getting your body to shut up a little more, and they're not actual mitzvahs, but it helps a lot. And one of those ways is to be very careful how you click when you're on the internet, especially late at night when no one's around and you're feeling a little lonely. Okay? That's another way to get your body to shut up, and that is to govern your internet usage very carefully. Okay, that's another way. Another way is just in general is treat your mind as a real estate development. You don't just give up real estate. Your mind, there's only so much you can think of. You want to fill your mind with positive stuff and with holy stuff and good stuff, and start treating your mind like real estate. And you're not just letting parcels of land out for nothing. Each piece of real estate is special, and you want to be very careful what you're willing to take in. Another thing is to just guard your eyes in general. Don't look at things that are, going to take you down. And also be very careful of anything that's violent or a lot of cursing and crass language and behavior, including music or film, or any other, or even Facebook. These days you'll get these like horrible Facebook clips from ISIS. And if you catch yourself watching those, you'll notice that you're not doing so hot for a day or two afterwards. And so avoid that stuff. That stuff hardens the heart of man. There's no way to watch that stuff and stay sensitive.
That includes like those really creepy, scary movies too.
Oh yeah, all the creepy movies and scary movies, and the violent films and all that stuff. I know they're highly entertaining, and it certainly passes a couple hours in a way that you don't even have to think about your own life. You're so busy watching the movie. But they harden your heart. And you don't want a hard heart if you want to connect to God. You want a soft heart. Anyway, so these are all things to avoid. Now let's get on the positive side. We spent 5 minutes on the negatives. Let's get to the positives. So the positives are, and this is how to ride your soul in a couple of things. Number one is get yourself involved in positive commandments. A couple I'll mention right now. One of them is tzedakah. Tzedakah. When you give tzedakah, when you let go, even a shekel, which is, what is that, a quarter? Something like that. In America, it's about a quarter. You wouldn't give a quarter to your enemies in America. And here, we hump over the shekel we have to give up. I'm not talking about the jokers in the old city, these tourist beggars, not those guys. I'm talking about like real tzedakah people. People who really need money. Anyway, but that's a positive thing to do that gets you more spiritual. Why? Because, what is one of the epicenters of the matrix is money, physicality. Okay. It's your survival. Survival for human beings is money. For animals, it's food. For plants, it's sunlight. For the human being, it's money. And you're letting go of your money, it's going to make you a more spiritual person. There's limits. You can't give more than 20%. Can't put yourself at risk. Can't give less than 10, obviously after taxes. Another big one is to say Shema. Say Shema. What?
It's 10% after taxes?
Yeah. Yeah, if your own money, what you get to keep, 10% is not yours.
Family first.
So it depends. You'll notice a lot of the Sephardic tradition usually takes care of family with that 10%. And in the Ashkenazic world, it's a mix. Some take care of the family first, and some don't. I don't. I really wouldn't have to give a penny of tzedakah from all the money I'm putting out for various family members. How are you doing? Welcome. This is a class called Practical Spirituality. We're learning how to use our souls so that we actually can connect to the Creator. Because if you didn't notice, it's kind of a big distance between finite and infinite. And we'd be really stuck if it weren't for our souls. So we spent the first 5 minutes talking about how to avoid stuff that kind of puts your soul into sleep mode. We spoke about how to avoid certain things that put the soul in sleep mode. And now we're on the positive stuff. What kind of stuff can you do that kind of bolsters the soul? In a way, you could look at it like Pac-Man. Like remember those Pac-Man game? So you have you're always running away from the lunch bags. Those are the things that kind of turn your soul off. Those things chasing you around, and then there's the
power pill.
What?
The power pill.
Yeah, the power pill, and then you're like on fire. So we're talking about those things now. So the first one we mentioned was giving tzedakah. The epicenter of the physical world is your money, which is for human beings, that's survival. And to give a little tzedakah. Minimum of 10%, maximum of 20. Can't give more than 20. The next is saying Shema. Shema is a very, very spiritual statement, and if you understand it and you say it with depth, it can really have a strong impact. I'll give you an example of some of the depth. The shin of Shema, you'll notice it looks like fire. Shh, Shema, and it sounds like fire. Shh. Even the sin, which has a dot on the other side, it's got and the shin has a very high frequency. In fact, of all the Hebrew letters, if you actually put it on a graph, it has the highest frequency. Shin, it represents expansion, and that's why the word Aish, which is fire, represents expansion. And this is fire, and on the chart, it would be what's the carbon? I think it would be carbon. How do you say carbon in the periodic table? Ca. C. And then you have the mem of Shema. Shema. Well, the mem's quite the opposite. The mem, it has a sound of and it has the least frequency. So the shin has the most frequency, and the mem has the least frequency. And it's related to water. That's why we have the word mayim. Yeah, and it relates to water. And that's the mem also connects to the hydrogen molecule. Okay, even though water has a yud as well. But it's kind of cool though when you look at if you ever looked at water, you know, it's called H2O because it's got two H's and an O. So I'll just show you a yud here, even though it's not part of Shema. Here's a yud. The yud is oxygen or air, and it's oxygen. And that it's funny if you look at the word mayim, it's spelled like this. You see how it's exactly CO2? You see that? Did I say CO2? H2O. It's exactly H2O. In fact, the sun is cool because the sun in Hebrew, anyone know how to spell sun in Hebrew? Shemesh. If you look up here, you see that it's the sun is a burning ball of hydrogen. Where's our, yeah, right there. The sun is really just a burning ball of hydrogen. So you see the shin, mem, shemesh is the sun. It's hydrogen engulfed in fire. Mem contracts, it's a contractor, and shin is an expander. What's cool about both of them is they tend to burn things into oneness. Like everything's flammable ultimately in the physical world. You know, high enough heat, it will melt into something else. You know, and but water also is. You can throw a screw into water, a hard screw that would otherwise hold a building together. You put it into water and come back a year later, and it's gone. You know, it just will rust and then just disintegrate. It's a solvent, and that's the beauty of mem. And mem has a final mem, which actually is the end of the word mayim. It's actually a final mem, which is exactly like a mikvah. You know, it's like a body of water that's like a mikvah, which you put mayim into, you put water into. How much water makes a mikvah? And the answer is mem. 40. Mem, which stands for the number 40. Mem is 40. And the amount of water is a mem. Mem amount of water, 40. 40 sa'ah. A sa'ah is like 6 Pepsi bottles, you know, like the plastic liter and a half. About 6 of those. So 40 times 6 Pepsi bottles is the minimum of a mikvah. And interestingly, as we go into the mayim, into the water, whenever we've gotten a little too scattered, you know, when a person's gotten too scattered, meaning either a woman's ability to create because she's ovulated and she's menstruated, so now that energy that could have been focused into life has now gotten scattered. So after menstruation, she goes to mikvah. And a man also who has the ability for life, if a man has had a seminal emission, he also goes to mikvah. And the mikvah kind of brings him back. It retightens her or him from this scattered potential to kind of reform one's potential. And that's the water. One more thing about the water, about the mikvah, and this also gets you very spiritual because again, we've been getting scattered, and this is a focuser. And the whole point, you want to connect to God, use your soul as this fiber optic link to God. You don't want to be scattered, you want to be focused. And so this scattered energy can be refocused via these things. And, so what I wanted to mention is if you look in Genesis, it's interesting. In the book of Genesis, David, you ever read the book of Genesis? People down in Mississippi seem to know the book of Genesis better than everybody else. So. Of course. Yeah, I reckon. So anyway, when you look in the book of Genesis, it seems to presuppose water. In fact, the very first line of the Torah, before God's really created light or anything, it says that his presence was hovering over the water. Who said anything about water? There was no let there be water. It's already presupposed. which teaches us there's something spiritual about water. Water makes things become one again. And what happens is when we get overly involved in our world, in our creation, so the water brings us back. The water of the mikvah brings us back. And you'll notice that most men in the world of the Jewish world go to mikvah right before Shabbat. Friday afternoon's a crowded day at the mikvah. I go to mikvah every day. The Hasidim, us guys, yeah, and the Sephardim, you guys, we go. You're Moroccan, right? We go to mikvah every day. What a way to start a day. And then we have a mikvah. And my mikvah is 117 degrees. You know how hot that is? You can't even get in it, really. You have to go to the cold pool first just to tighten up the skin, and then you jump in the hot pool quick. I hope you don't have a heart problem. Yeah. So, anyway, we go to mikvah every day. We start our whole day with mikvah.
Why is it so hot?
It relaxes the muscles. It's like the ultimate jacuzzi. But what I want to say about why Fridays is because you've been involved in commerce all week. Man's brain, people's brains get pretty scattered. Remember, we're talking about scatterbrain and focus. Shabbos is the focus day. Weekdays, you're doing business, money's exchanging, and all kinds of scattered brain thinking, and almost everyone takes their work with them when they leave work. And so you're kind of, in a way, these days, I think most of us are working way longer than the hours we actually spend at an office. And what do you do for a living, David?
I work in digital media.
You find you take it home with you a little bit?
Sure.
What do you do? What do you do, Matt?
I still have commercial real estate.
Commercial real estate. You take it with you a little bit?
Of course.
What's your name again?
Maury.
Maury, yeah. What do you do, Maury?
Currently,
Yeah.
I work for free. The startup. I'm on a program for intern in television.
Oh, yeah?
So I was going to ask me if I take my work home. I don't because they don't pay me.
What do you do?
I'm a student in Canada.
Canada? You don't take your work with you. So I run, I have a seminar company, which I run here in New York and Canada, and I take my work with me. And I really don't appreciate it, and my wife and kids certainly don't appreciate it. Comes Friday, you're going into Shabbat. Time to dip in that pre-creation material and get yourself unscattered and refocused. Anyway, that's the mem, that's the mikvah. Here, I'll put a little water in the mikvah. Okay, that's the mikvah, and that's the refocuser. And you should know, by the way, that all of your grandmothers, if it wasn't your grandmother's, your great-grandmother, but all of us are direct descendants of women who would sooner die than to cohabitate with your great-great-grandfather or your great-grandfather. Not having gone to the mikvah, she would sooner die. And she would figure that, and some of them did it under duress, especially if you're Ashkenazi, where we suffered heavy-duty persecution, whereas like the chances of her not making it back, or God forbid getting raped on the way to the mikvah or whatever, there are great stories of, you think about how young people marry too. The 16-year-old little girl skirts across town to get to the mikvah. She then climbs down a secret well, which has just pegs put in it. She goes down and down and down. It's freezing cold winter in Poland. And she gets down to the bottom, and there is a lady on a little platform. There's always a mikvah lady to help you out. And she's broken the ice on the top of the well. And now this little 16-year-old girl is going to jump in that water and go in 3 times, and the woman's got to witness her going in 3 times all the way under. Each time she comes up, she says, kosher. She goes down, comes up, kosher. Goes down, comes up, kosher. And the 3rd time she makes a blessing, and now she can go be with her husband. And all of us are their children. We are all the direct descendants of these people. They went through hell to go to mikvah, and today there's mikvahs everywhere. No matter where you go to Toronto, there's a mikvah. You go to Calgary, there's a mikvah. You go to New York, there's a mikvah. You go to LA, there's a mikvah. You go to San Diego, there's a mikvah. There's a mikvah in Tijuana. There's mikvahs everywhere. Las Vegas, there's a mikvah. Anywhere you go, there's a mikvah. And today, most women just blow it off when they're the direct descendants of women who, like, with their lives, they risked to go to those mikvahs. Mikvah is very important. I know a mikvah lady who's the lady who says, kosher, kosher. I know a mikvah lady. She was leaving the mikvah one night, and she told me this directly, this story. She was leaving the mikvah. She's one of the latest open mikvahs. Women only go at night. One of the latest mikvahs open. And they get all like the wingnut ladies over there. Like, you know, most women should figure out how to get to the mikvah before, you know, midnight. But they're open until like 1. She's closing the mikvah, totally exhausted, has dealt with the craziest women of Jerusalem. And they can get pretty crazy here. And she's closing the door when just as she's watching the door close, a rat runs into the mikvah. Now, women's mikvahs are very fancy places. They don't have rats. Even the men's mikvah don't have rats, but if they did, certainly the mikvah guy would have just said, I'm not dealing with that. You know, we'll let the Hasidim deal with that rat tomorrow. You know, but I'm not dealing with it. Women's mikvahs, I mean, they just, for example, the mikvah in Nachlaot, where I live, across the street from my house, it was a nice mikvah to begin with. They just put another $200,000 into the women's mikvah to make it even more beautiful. And anyway, a rat runs into the mikvah. What is she going to do? She has no choice. She can't leave it in there. But how do you get a rat out of a whole building? So she goes searching around, exhausted, getting ready to call her husband and come help her. Finally, she's walking by the mikvah room, and she's hearing inside the mikvah room, in the pool, she's hearing plop, 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 plop. She goes inside the mikvah, and she sees that a rat is jumping off the top step into the mikvah and kind of floating around and then coming back to the top step and jumping off and coming back and jumping off. And she's just staring at this rat, watching this happen. She can't believe it. So she didn't get the rat right away. She just kept watching. And she noticed sometimes it would plop deep enough that it would actually clear the water surface. Most of the times it didn't, because rats aren't exactly fish. And it would, just kind of plop and get back up. But she decided that for the one time that the rat actually cleared the surface, she said, kosher. And then a minute later, it made it again. It got also under the surface. And she said, kosher. And about 2 minutes later, again, it went under. She said, kosher. The rat came back up the first step, keeled over, and died.
No way. No way.
Yeah.
This can't be just.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I was with her that Shabbos.
That's crazy. That's a Jewish rat.
It's a Jewish rat. So if you didn't realize, I just told you a story about reincarnation. That was not a story about a rat. That was not a story about a rat. That was a story about a Jewish woman who had come back as a rat, which is really a blessing, because probably her only mitzvah, either she was only missing the mitzvah of mikvah, or perhaps she had lied to her husband and said she was going to mikvah when she hadn't been going to mikvah. Whatever it was, she had to get a mikvah. So it's much better if she only needed a mikvah and then she was going to die. Much better than it being on her wedding day, which is the first time women usually go to the mikvah, is on her wedding day. Much better than her keeling over and dying on her wedding day. She should die as a rat. And anyway, but the rat got proper burial. Yeah, they buried the rat. And they brought it to a Kabbalist. And the Kabbalist said, for sure, this is the soul of a Jewish woman, and to bury it. Okay, now, but what we're really talking about is Shema. Shema starts with a shin, which has the highest frequency, fire, expansion. Mem, is contraction of that frequency. Taking that expansion and getting to contraction. The next letter of Shema is the ayin. Well, the ayin is the same word for what? I. The word ayin means I. So what do you think ayin means? And if it means I, what else might it mean?
Sight.
What?
Sight.
Sight, not necessarily, but we say it in English. It's like sight. Perception, good. Perception. Looking deep into something. So the word for digging deep into something, to really introspect or inspect, really look into something, is called le'ayin. Ayin. This is ayin. Just add the infinitive, add a lamed, and you get the word le'ayin. In fact, in the yeshiva next door, In the morning, they do depth of Talmud. In the afternoon, they do breadth. In the morning, they just learn a few lines, super deep. In the afternoons, they cover ground. There's a lot of pages, so they try to cover maybe a half a page, a whole page of Talmud. The morning program is called Iyun. Iyun, ayin, Iyun. We're going deep in. So now let's look. Shh. Take your scatterbrain head. Focus it in. Remember the mem represents focus, bringing things back to oneness. Ma is the ayin, is to look in, to look deep into this. Shema Yisrael. And in fact, the word Shema, I know you guys probably think Shema means to listen, right? Lishmoa. But we have another word for listening. The word for listening is lahakshiv. Shema is to, the word in Hebrew would be lafnim. How do you say it in English? What? No, lafnim means to, it means to integrate. Shema means to integrate. So, meaning you can hear something, but you're not necessarily going to integrate it. Shema is the word to really means don't just hear it physically. Integrate this. Go deep into this one. Yeah? So get out of the scatterbrain and get focused and integrate. So what's cool about this is us Jewish men wear these four-cornered garments called tzitzis. And these four-cornered garments, right before we say Shema, I see Matt sporting a pair of tzitzis over there. Right before we say Shema, we actually gather these four corners together. We actually put them on the webbing of our pinky right here, specifically on the webbing, just like you ride a horse. When you ride a horse, anyone horseback riders here? Yeah. You ever ride horses? Mm-hmm. Right? Do you put the reins on the webbing or you hold full fist? How do you hold reins? It goes on the webbing, right? Don't you? Yeah, you put it there. Just like we do. Same reason. Same reason. You know why? Because your body's your horse. Your body. Are you a natural English speaker?
No.
Where are you from?
France.
Oh, France. Welcome. Amazing. So your body is your horse. How do you say horse in French?
Cheval.
What?
Cheval.
Cheval. So your body is your cheval, and your soul, your neshama, is the rider. So why do we put reins on the webbing? Because the horse has a bit in its mouth that's going against its lips. You've got to be sensitive to your horse. You see, if you really got so clear on who God is, you would totally ignore your body. You'd be like a monk. You'd wind up skipping meals, and you wouldn't exercise, and you wouldn't be sexually active. You would just be totally cut off because you'd be so into God. Who could bother me with food? Food? You want me to eat? I want to eat. I'm into God. If eating's like survival, that's animals. Sexuality, that's reproduction. What do I have to do with that? So, you see, I could easily just pull that horse's reins because I'm so into God that I wind up just killing the horse. You want to kill your horse. God gave you a horse for a reason. You have a cheval for a reason. And so you put the reins, these are the reins, okay? Women don't need them as much. Okay, maybe these days women need them, but in the old days women didn't need them. Women naturally recognize the soul as the rider and the horse is the horse. These days, I'm not sure what women recognize or don't recognize, but in the old days. So in these days, sometimes I think women should wear tzitzis, actually. Anyway, but the men for millennia have been very confused about who is the horse and who is the rider. Imagine yourself with a horse on top of you, riding you around. That's the way most people are. They got this horse it's like their horse is like, whatever. The society and marketing, it's billions of dollars of marketing trying to make your horse be your rider. But your horse isn't your rider, and your horse will take you where you don't want to go. Yeah, that horse will ruin you. Your horse will ruin you. But your horse with a proper rider can take you to places the rider could never have gone without it. Right? A horse can take a rider where a rider can't go without it. A horse is great. Now, the monks in India, they say, no horse. Get rid of the horse. Judaism, we say, use the horse. But the horse is dangerous, as we spoke about at the beginning of the class. The horse is dangerous. It has its own desire. But what we have Torah. We have instructions. What is the Torah? It's just horseback riding instructions. It's just how to keep the horse in check. Buddhists never got a Torah. They don't have any instructions. So if you don't have instructions, okay, you got to kill the horse. You have instructions, keep the horse alive. The Torah is instructions for how to ride a horse. Okay, no instructions, your horse is dangerous. So that's why you'll notice that all the other religions in the world have something called monks. They have monks. So a horse is dangerous. They have a priesthood.
It's like the Kumar community.
Which one?
Kumar?
Yeah, those guys. That was like the big OCD community. I don't like using extreme things for examples. I don't know what was going on with those guys.
Were they monkish?
Very monkish. But because we have a Torah, the only reason we're not monks is we have instructions. God says use your body. Just use it well and keep the horse in check. Anyway, you understand we have these reins, and the tzitzis are to remind you that you are, whatever, that you're the rider. If you're married, it reminds you you're married. Okay? And anyway, so what do? Right before we say Shema, we take these four corners. What do these represent, four corners? They represent the four directions. Expansiveness, like the shin. They represent expansion, extension, lack of godliness, rather physicality, multiplicity. And we take that this multiplicity and we unite them. As I said before, we put it on the webbing. And then we take our right hand, we cover our eyes, and we say Shema. Why do we cover our eyes? Because what we're saying is really all of this is one. Everything's all there is God. Everything's from Hashem. And everything is Hashem, really. And so I don't want to see the lie when I say the truth. Because according to the Shema, God is absolutely one. There is nothing else. All of this is illusion. There's really only God. And so I take my hand and I cover my eyes because I don't want to look at an illusion while I'm talking about reality. I'm now making a declaration of reality. That's saying Shema. I'm declaring the reality of existence. And the reality of existence is that the existence is a lowercase e, and the existence of God is an uppercase e. It's the true existence. When I'm saying Shema, so I'm covering my eyes. I don't want to see that. I've united the physical world in my left hand, covering my eyes, and then scattered, focused, right? Scattered, focused. Look deep into this. Yisrael. The next word is Yisrael, the Jewish people. What are we, ethnocentric? Why are only the Jewish people? What about the rest of the world? What about the nations? Only Israel? The Gentiles don't get to know about Shema, about God's oneness? So when you click on the word Yisrael in the Torah, Israel, takes you to a Rashi, to a website, Rashi's website. And there on Rashi's website, it says that the absolute oneness reality of God is like, it's over the top for Gentiles. It's too much for them. They need some kind of icon or physical representations or something like that. For them to like let go of all reality like that as who God is like over the top for them. But he says in the end of days, they're going to totally get this concept. So it's, in other words, it's Shema, hear Israel now. In the end of days, the whole world will get this. And by the way, we're getting there now, meaning we're what Rashi was talking about is now. It's not now, but it's basically now. I mean, you can easily discuss with a Gentile that this world's illusion. They make movies about it. I mean, The Matrix was about that. Groundhog's Day was about that. The Truman Show was about that. And since then, there's been many, many more movies, all of which I have not seen, that are about this world being an illusion. It's become like a very popular theme in the world. So what Rashi was saying throughout history was just too big a stretch for people. But today it's considered totally commonplace to consider that this world's an illusion and really the metaphysical, spiritual world is reality. Not to mention modern day shamanisms hit the world in a major way. Today it's very rare to find someone who's never experienced a shamanistic experience in their lives. Usually probably 1 in 10 people you meet today has had a psychedelic experience, which is pure shamanism hitting the streets of modern existence. And that's certainly going to, give someone an experience of oneness, of all reality. You get that? So today, what Rashi was saying is basically, for now, for our generation, even the whole world can get the oneness of God. Anyway, that's another way to ride the soul. So far we had the things you should avoid, which not all of you heard. We spoke about giving tzedakah. We spoke about Shema. And just bring up a couple of others. One is to do chesed, to do kindness to people, be a giver. That helps a lot. The more generous you are with yourself, the more your soul will glow. To be a kind person and give of yourself in any way you can to the community, to individuals. Be a benevolent contributor to society. That's another. A couple others is prayer. Shema is not prayer. Shema is just a massive declaration.
What was the ayin in Shema again?
Huh?
The ayin, the shin was fire, the min was water. What was the ayin?
Oh, it's just the eye. It's to look in. The word eye is ayin. Yeah, ayin means eye.
How do you define shamanistic? Because I understand it in a maybe completely different way. Like shaman were rural healers that oftentimes use witchcraft. So how are you using it?
There is that aspect. Shamans are the leaders of tribal people usually. Most tribal people have a shaman as their leader, and they're the people who have the deepest understanding of the metaphysical world. We're in the physical world, and their tribes live in the physical, and the shamans are the ones who spend their time usually navigating the metaphysical world, and they're automatically the leaders of the communities there. Tribal people generally don't have government leading the people. It's the people who know the most about spirituality. By the way, Judaism's no different. Until the state of Israel, a Jewish leader was always the holiest. Automatically, for the last 3,326 years, minus, what year is Israel? No, Israel's 66 years old. Right? 66?
Yeah, 66.
So for the last 3,326 years, minus the last 76 years of the state of Israel, for all those millennia, the leaders of the Jews were always the most shamanistic, the most totally evolved in their connection and ability to navigate the spiritual realm.
Like the prophets.
Yeah, they were the leaders. They were always the leaders, were the holiest people. Now, we did obviously have kings of Israel who were not such good guys. We've had our kings of Israel, but the king of Israel, if we ever had a king who wasn't, on that spiritual level, he wasn't allowed to make a move without the prophet. Every king had a prophet who was in charge of the generation. So the king was the king. But if he ever wanted to make a move, like a major move, he always had to refer to the prophet, who was like the shaman, only like a prophet's like a shaman on steroids, because a shaman's, it's below up. It's a man who's finding his way through he's navigating the spiritual. Whereas prophecy is just a total up-down. This is God saying, you know, full download, like the mother download to a human being. That's nothing to do with the prophet. Prophet's totally out of the way for that experience. It's not the prophet's doing. Anyway, the last one that I'm going to mention today is, as it's 4 o'clock now, we're drawing to a close. And the last one is prayer. And just to mention that there's informal and there's formal prayer. Informal prayer is just between you and God, and formal prayer is a much more Kabbalistic prayer. That's in our prayer book. The reason why most people don't connect much to formal prayer is because they don't know what in the world they're doing, which is fine. It takes a lot of study to understand formal prayer. But what happens is, you get dragged into some prayer group called a minyan, and you're handed a prayer book, and you're like, this just doesn't feel spiritual. Why? Because you don't know what you're doing, which is fine. It would probably take a man many years of study to understand the Kabbalistic import of all those prayers. Nevertheless, even if you didn't understand those prayers, doesn't mean saying them isn't a mitzvah, doesn't mean saying them isn't good. In fact, I would even suggest that you say them and learn them while you're saying them. Meaning learn them over the years until you really understand them. But here's the big one, is that don't forget that connecting to God in a personal way, just you talking to the master of the universe, you talking to your maker, it's called informal prayer, and that is a really important path to connecting to God. It's just your relationship with God. You can do it while you drive down the road. You can do it when you're going to sleep at night. You can do it when you wake up in the morning. You can do it while you're swimming laps. You can do it while you're at work. You can do it. And I will end with a little story of a professor who worked with rats. And the rats, whatever, they have to run mazes and there's different experiments. And anyway, one day he comes into work and he's having his coffee before he starts the rat race. Meaning he literally sends rats to see how they do, based on different. They have sometimes they inject them with a medication and we see how that one does. And, so anyway, the professor gets into work and he hears a little, hello. And the professor's like, who's that? And, hello. He's like, who is that? And he hears, down here. And he looks down in the rat cage. And these are the rats he works with every day. And one of the rats is just like, it's me. And he quickly takes him out, puts him on his table, and he says, what in the world? I don't know. Here I am. I'm your friend. Anyway, so the professor and this rat become good friends. And he finishes his coffee. Him and the rat are talking. But it's time for the day's experiments. He's got to work for a living, and this rat's not going to get any special treatment. So he puts him in the maze. Okay, he's not the one he injected, but he definitely puts him in the maze. So now every time that rat hits a wall, he thinks he's doing pretty good, and then he hits a wall. So the rat looks up at him and goes, and the professor's like, gotcha. And every once in a while, the rat makes it through a clearing, gets through several things, and the rat's like, and the professor's like, yeah, very nice. Anyway, and then hits another wall, and the rat's like, ouch. And the professor's like, ah. And then he finally makes his way out of the rat race, out of the maze, and he's doing the Olympic salute, and the professor's like, that's my boy, that's my boy. God is the professor. Whether you're into God or not, you still got to run the race. All of us have to run this race. We're all going to be in the rat race of life. You might as well have a relationship with the professor. So yeah, you're on your way to a meeting and get a flat tire. That's like hitting the wall in the maze. Shame to just be all bummed out about your flat tire when you can, okay, I got a flat tire, right before you get out of your car to fix it, look up and go. And God's up there just going, good luck, don't worry, I've got your best in mind. You have no idea what might have happened had this tire stayed on the car. I'm taking care of you. And he's running the show, he knows what he's doing. And when you make it through something, you get to close a good deal, or like something good happens in your life, you can look up and celebrate. And God says, I'm with you. I mean, this creation's all being orchestrated. You might as well have a relationship with the actual orchestrator of the events of your life. I know you all think you're making choices, but if you think about your choices, they're only at the very end of the orchestration. You know how much had to be organized? For example, you coming to Israel. You chose to come here?
6 days ago.
6 days ago?
Yeah.
Whoa, cool. So, but you're right, but you made a powerful choice. And it is a powerful choice. But had you seen all the workings of all those things that were being orchestrated to get to the point where the microphone came up to your mouth and said, David, what do you choose? And you're like, I'll go. And so you're feeling this power in your choice, but which is yours. I'm not going to take it away from you. But there was tremendous orchestration. You think you came here because you chose for a, what was this, internship in Tel Aviv? It's all set up. It's all set up. Everything's a setup. Everything I'm doing throughout my entire day, it was all set up. I'll make choices. I'll be rewarded and punished based on those choices. But it was all orchestrated. Tremendous orchestration. That's why if someone cuts me off while I'm driving, and I'm going to be a couple seconds later because I'm the next car and I wind up missing the light, and that guy made the light, and now I'm waiting 2-3 minutes behind a light, I know it's being orchestrated, and I don't want to be anywhere I'm not meant to be. Okay, if I'm in a hurry, I will go through that orange light. Yeah, I'm an Israeli driver, and I will go through that yellow light. But if I missed it, I missed it. I don't want something that if God orchestrated a red light, I'm taking the red, please. I don't want to force my way onto anything. You hear that? So anyway, we're making choices, and we will be rewarded and punished based on those choices. But it's all being orchestrated. This is all a greater plan. Our little choices we make are nothing compared to the orchestration involved. There's just so much going on behind the scenes all the time. But we have the chance to connect to the orchestrator. So let's connect to the orchestrator. Let's use our souls, our fiber optic link, connecting to the orchestrator, and just having your own personal relationship with God, besides the formal relationship and the formal prayer. Just talk to God. It's your own prayer. Your prayer is just to talk to God. And you can do it silently. Some prefer to do it out loud, especially if no one's listening. Try not to be that guy walking down the street talking. Although today with Bluetooth, you can really just walk down the street talking to God. People just think you're on the phone. Yeah. Shalom, everyone. Have a beautiful day.